Moving into a new place was supposed to be a fresh start, a way to leave behind the mess of my past and finally build something of my own. At least, that's what I told myself. But everything changed after I met the handyman. The house I moved into was old, but full of charm. A fixer-upper, sure, but it had just enough personality to make me believe I could turn it into a home. Reality hit harder than I expected, though. I had barely unpacked when the first problem showed up. The kitchen sink wouldn't stop leaking. No matter how many times I twisted the faucet, tightened the knobs, or pretended I knew what I was doing, water kept dripping steadily into the basin, like it was mocking me. The bathroom light flickered ominously. One of the windows wouldn't shut properly. So much for a clean slate. Frustrated and out of my depth, I gave in and did what any clueless new homeowner would do. I called for a handyman. I didn't know what to expect. But when I opened the door that afternoon, it definitely wasn't him. He stood on my porch, toolbox in hand, dressed in worn jeans and a fitted black t-shirt that clung to his broad chest like it had been made for him. He looked like he'd stepped out of a gritty film, strong, relaxed, completely self-assured. His dark hair was slightly messy in that effortless way some people pull off, and when he looked up at me, his deep-set eyes held something unreadable. "You're the new guy, right?" he asked, his voice smooth, carrying the easy confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times before. I blinked, trying to remember how to speak. Yeah. Just moved in a few days ago." He nodded, shifting the toolbox to his other hand. "Welcome to the neighborhood. You called about a leak?" I cleared my throat and stepped aside to let him in. "Yeah. Kitchen sink. And maybe a few other things, while you're here." He walked past me, bringing with him the faint scent of sawdust and something clean, subtly masculine, simple, but distracting. I followed him into the kitchen, trying not to overthink the way his presence seemed to fill the room so easily. "Guess the place came with a few surprises." "Hey," he said, crouching to inspect the pipes under the sink. I let out a breath and leaned against the counter. More than I bargained for. The faucet's been dripping since I moved in. I tried fixing it, but I gestured helplessly. He glanced up at me, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Let me guess, YouTube tutorial." I scoffed. "What? Like that's not a totally legit way to learn plumbing." His smirk widened into a grin, the kind that did weird things to my stomach. "Sure. Right up until you flood your kitchen." I rolled my eyes, but couldn't stop the smile tugging at my lips. There was something about the way he carried himself, calm, confident, that made it impossible not to respond. He turned back to the sink, forearms flexing as he adjusted a wrench. "So," he said after a beat, voice casual, "why this town? What brought you here?" I hesitated, caught off guard. Most people didn't ask. Not like that. "Needed a change," I said finally. "Wanted some peace and quiet. The city was too much." He didn't press. Just nodded, like he got it. "Yeah. I get that." Something about the way he said it made me wonder what his story was. But before I could ask, he gave the pipe one final twist and sat back on his heels. "That should do it," he said, standing and testing the faucet. The water ran smoothly. "No more leaking. I'll check out the other things while I'm here." "Thanks," I said, meaning it. As he moved through the house, fixing the flickering light, inspecting the stubborn window, we talked. He told me his name was Alex, and that he'd been doing handyman work around town for a few years. He knew pretty much everyone. Which didn't surprise me. He had that kind of presence, the kind that stuck with you long after he left. Our conversation was easy, light, but beneath it, there was something else. A tension we didn't name. I caught him looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. His fingers brushed mine when I handed him a screwdriver. My pulse jumped every time he moved just a little too close. By the time he finished, the house was quiet again, but the air felt heavier somehow. Charged. He packed up his tools and stretched, glancing at me. Shouldn't have too many more problems now, he said. But houses like this, things tend to act up. Wouldn't be surprised if you need me again soon. He said it casually, but something in his tone made my throat go dry. Right, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Well, thanks again. For everything. Alex nodded, his gaze lingering just a second too long before he finally turned toward the door. See you around, new guy. And then he was gone, leaving me standing in my newly repaired house, heart pounding for no logical reason. I told myself it was nothing. Just a normal service call. But deep down, I already knew better. This wasn't the last time I'd see him. And next time. I had a feeling things wouldn't be nearly as simple. The house was in working order now. Everything Alex fixed was running fine. And yet, something felt off. It wasn't the leaky faucet or the flickering light. Those were handled. It was the silence. I told myself that's why I came here, to escape the endless noise of the city. But ever since Alex walked out that door a few days ago, the quiet had felt too quiet. I'd caught myself thinking about him more than I should have, his confidence, the way his shirt clung to his chest when he stretched, the crooked smirk he gave me before he left. I was being ridiculous. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But then, like the universe had been listening in, something else in the house gave out. This time, it was the heater. It had been fine before. But now, in the middle of the night, it made a noise like it was about to explode. I had no choice. I reached D for my phone, scrolling to the contacts saved under Alex, Handyman, and hesitated. Would he think I was calling just to see him again? I shook the thought away and hit dial. It rang twice before his voice came through the line, smooth, slightly amused. Miss me already? I exhaled sharply, caught between irritation and something dangerously close to amusement. Yeah, sure. My heater decided to start making death threats, so I figured I'd call the only guy in town who actually seems to know what he's doing. He chuckled. That bad, who? Come hear it for yourself. All right, all right. I'll swing by in a bit. He didn't even ask for my address. He remembered. Alex showed up quicker than I expected, toolbox in hand, sleeves pushed up just enough to show off strong, veined forearms that flexed with every movement. I told myself I wasn't staring. He knocked once, then opened the door like he belonged here, stepping inside with that same easy confidence. So, where's the patient? I led him to the heater, arms crossed, watching as he knelt down to inspect it. Think you can fix it? He looked up, lips twitching. That's why you called me, isn't it? I rolled my eyes, but before I could answer, the heater let out a loud, unnatural groan. I flinched. Alex smirked. All right, all right. Point made. He crouched lower, grabbing a wrench from his toolbox. For a moment, I just stood there, watching. The way his hands moved, the way his shoulders shifted beneath his shirt, it was distracting. Way more than it should have been. And of course, he noticed. You're awfully quiet over there, he said, not looking up. I blinked. What? He turned slightly, resting an arm on his knee, eyeing me with amusement. Last time you had a million questions. Already getting tired of me? I scoffed. I figured I'd let you do your job this time. Without interrupting. His grin widened. That, or you're just nervous around me. I tensed. What? You heard me. He tilted his head, clearly enjoying himself. You get all stiff when I get close. Like you're trying real hard not to notice me. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because he wasn't wrong. His gaze flicked down to my crossed arms, then back up again. And then, without warning, he stood. Too close. Close enough that I had to tilt my head to meet his eyes. I held my ground, but my pulse spiked. You always this wound up, he murmured. I swallowed. You always this full of yourself? His smirk deepened. Only when I'm right. The air between us thickened, no longer just about words. It was the way he looked at me. The heat radiating from just inches away. The tension curling low in my stomach. I should have stepped back. I didn't. His hand brushed against mine, not accidental, not rushed. Just there. Warm. Solid. I inhaled sharply, but before I could react, the heater made one last groan, and then shut off completely. Alex laughed under his breath, breaking the tension. Well, that's one way to fix it. The moment shattered. I blinked, forcing myself to breathe again. Yeah, I said, clearing my throat. Lucky timing. He shot me a look, like he knew better, but didn't say anything. Instead, he made a few final adjustments, then stepped back. Should be good now, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. But if anything else breaks, you know who to call. I knew what he was implying. I just didn't know what to do about it. He grabbed his toolbox and paused at the door. Hey! I looked up, stomach tightening. What? His expression softened, voice quieter. You don't have to act like nothing's there. I frowned. What are you talking about? He held my gaze, as if debating something, then shook his head with a small, knowing smile. Never mind. See you around, new guy. And just like that, he was gone again. I stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door. My hand still tingled where he'd touched it. I could have brushed it off as nothing. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. It had been 2 days since Alex was last here, and I hated how aware I was of that fact. I hated even more how often I found myself glancing at my phone, half hoping something else in the house would break, just to see him again. But the heater was fine. The sink wasn't leaking. Everything worked, except me. I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he stood too close. The way his hand brushed mine. The way he looked at me before he left, like he knew something I hadn't admitted yet. I wasn't the impulsive type. I liked control. Logic. I liked knowing where things were going. But Alex didn't fit into the plan. And yet, I found myself dialing his number anyway. When he answered, his voice was the same as always, smooth, lightly amused. Miss me again already? I hesitated. Swallowed. No, I mean, yeah, kind of. I rubbed a hand over my face. I was just wondering if you wanted to come by. You know, since you've been here twice already, figured I'd return the favor. There was a pause. Are you inviting me over for drinks, new guy? It sounded absurd when he said it out loud. But I didn't back down. Maybe. Unless you've got better plans. He chuckled, low, knowing. Now. I'll be there in 20. I had no idea what I was doing. None. I changed shirts twice. Debated lighting a candle. Settled on opening a bottle of whiskey instead. When Alex knocked, my nerves were frayed. He walked in like he'd done it 100 times, his usual ease settling into the room. Dressed casually, dark jeans, a plain white t-shirt that somehow made him look even better. He spotted the whiskey on the counter and smirked. Didn't peg you for the drinking type. I shrugged, grabbing 2 glasses. I drink. He sat on the couch, watching as I poured. So, what's the occasion? I handed him a glass, avoiding eye contact. No occasion. Just figured we could actually talk. Not just about broken things. His lips twitched. But he took a sip. All right. Let's talk. It started simple, small talk about the town, how he ended up doing handyman work. He told me he'd grown up here. Liked working with his hands. Had no patience for offices or desks. I like fixing things, he said, turning his glass in his hands. I like knowing something's broken, and that I can leave it better than I found it. I nodded slowly. Yeah. I get that. He looked at me for a long moment. You don't strike me as someone who moved out here just for peace and quiet. Feels like you're running from something. My chest tightened. I just needed a change. He hummed, not buying it, but didn't push. Instead, he leaned back, arm draping across the back of the couch. And now? You liking it here? I hesitated. The town was fine. The house was fine. But the only thing that made it feel alive was sitting right next to me. Yeah, I said finally. It's growing on me. Alex smirked. That's so. I nodded, took another sip of whiskey. Warmth curled in my stomach. But it wasn't the alcohol. It was him. His presence. His closeness. The air shifted. He reached for my glass. His fingers brushed mine, slow, deliberate. His thumb barely grazed the inside of my wrist, but it was enough. My breath caught. My pulse jumped. He noticed. His gaze flicked to mine, the teasing smirk fading into something darker, more focused. Why do you do that? He asked, voice low. I swallowed. Do what? His hand stayed where it was, warm, steady. Act like this isn't happening. My chest tightened. I don't. Yeah, you do, he cut in gently. Every time I get close, you freeze. You look at me like you want something, but then you pull back. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't lie. Tell me I'm wrong, he said. I couldn't. Because he wasn't. I should have pulled away. Should have said something sharp, made a joke. But instead, I leaned in, barely a shift, barely a breath. But it was enough. He closed the distance before I could think, his mouth on mine, heat crashing through me. His hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers curling into my hair. He kissed me like he'd been waiting for it, like he knew I had too. I exhaled against his mouth, and that was all it took. He deepened it, tilting my head, taking control. I let him. I wanted him to. His body pressed against mine, solid and warm, hand sliding down my side. I didn't even realize we were moving until my back hit the couch, and he was over me, the weight of him grounding me, pulling me under. His hands wandered, ribs, waist, the hem of my shirt. He didn't rush. Didn't push. He waited. I could have stopped it. I didn't. Instead, I reached up, fingers threading into his hair, pulling him back down. He groaned into my mouth, low and raw, and something inside me broke loose. I wasn't thinking anymore. I was just feeling. Wanting. Taking. For the first time in a long, long time. I let myself have something real. His breath was uneven against my skin. His hands gripped my waist, like he was barely holding back. And I didn't want him to. My hands roamed his shoulders, his back, holding him tighter, anchoring myself to him like he was the only thing that made sense. And maybe, for now, he was. But then something inside me stuttered, a flicker of doubt. A whisper of fear. This was happening fast. Too fast. My breath hitched as his lips found my collarbone, and suddenly the weight of it, the meaning, the intensity, all of it hit me at once. I tensed. Alex felt it immediately. He stilled, his lips lingering against my skin before pulling back just slightly. His eyes searched mine. His hand still held me, but his grip softened. "What's wrong?" he asked, voice low, rough, but laced with concern. I exhaled, heart pounding. I didn't know what to say. I wanted this. I wanted him. But something in me still held back. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the truth I hadn't said out loud yet. Alex's jaw tensed as he watched me. "You gonna pull away again?" I opened my mouth, no words came. He let out a slow breath, fingers tightening briefly against my waist. "You always do this, don't you?" My brow furrowed. "Do what?" He tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "You run." My stomach twisted. "I don't." "You do," he said quietly, firmly. "You called me. You wanted me here. And now that I'm here, now that you have me." He studied me, voice dropping to something softer. "You're scared." "I'm not scared," I muttered. But even to my own ears, it sounded hollow. Alex let out a dry laugh and shook his head. I stiffened as his grip on my waist tightened just enough to send a shiver through me. His expression darkened, intense, burning, making my breath catch in my throat. "Tell me I'm wrong," he challenged. I clenched my jaw, throat tightening. His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to say more, but then he seemed to change his mind. Instead, he shifted back, off of me, putting just enough space between us for me to feel the sudden loss of his warmth. The gap was only an inch, but it felt like a canyon. He rubbed a hand over his face and exhaled sharply. "You can't keep doing this." A strange, twisting sensation curled in my chest. "Doing what?" Alex's gaze snapped back to mine, raw and frustrated. "Acting like you don't want this." I swallowed. "I never said." "You don't have to say it," he cut in, voice sharp. "I feel it. Every time I touch you. Every time you look at me like you're about to lose your mind and still can't bring yourself to stop." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He stared at me, jaw tight, fingers digging into his thighs like he was holding himself back. And then, without warning, he moved. 1 second, he was perched on the edge of the couch. The next, he was over me again, his hands braced on either side of my head, body hovering just above mine. I inhaled sharply. He didn't touch me. Not yet. His lips hovered dangerously close to mine, his breath warm against my skin. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "Tell me to walk out that door, and I will." My chest rose and fell. My pulse raced. Alex's hands curled into the couch cushions beside me, knuckles white. "Say it," he urged, voice taut. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll go." I stared up at him, body trembling. Not from fear, but from something deeper, heavier. I couldn't say it. Because it would be a lie. His eye searched mine. When I didn't speak, his jaw tensed. That's what I thought. Then he kissed me. It wasn't soft this time. It wasn't careful. It was fire. His hands moved with purpose, one tangling in my hair, tilting my head, the other gripping my waist, anchoring me to him. A sound escaped me, something between a gasp and a whimper, and he swallowed it, deepening the kiss, demanding all of me. I clung to him, my fingers digging into his back, body arching up into his. No hesitation. No fear. Only us. His name slipped past my lips, breathless, and something inside him broke. He groaned, low, rough, and kissed me like he'd been waiting for this as long as I had. His lips trailed down my jaw, to my neck, setting every nerve alight. "I knew you wanted this," he muttered against my skin. His teeth grazed just enough to make me shudder. I exhaled shakily, fingers threading through his hair. "Shut up." He chuckled darkly, his breath teasing along my collarbone. "Make me." So I did. I pulled him down again, taking, giving, losing myself in him. Because for the first time, I wasn't running. I was exactly where I wanted to be. We did it. The room was quiet now, the soft glow of streetlights casting faint shadows across the walls. My breathing slowed as I sank deeper into the warmth of the sheets. But my mind was anything but calm. Alex lay beside me, bare chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. One arm rested across his stomach, and he looked completely at ease, like he belonged. Jed here. Like this was normal. But for me, this wasn't normal at all. I turned my head, watching him in the quiet. What now? This, whatever this was, had always felt inevitable. The tension between us impossible to ignore. But now that the fire had burned through all the layers, now that I'd let myself fall without hesitation, I was left standing at the edge of something terrifying. What if this had meant more to me than it did to him? What if it was just a moment, a way to pass the time? I swallowed hard. Alex had always carried himself like nothing fazed him. Calm. Confident. Casual. Maybe I was just one more thing in his world that he didn't think too deeply about. And me? I was already in too deep. I turned on my side, trying to calm the storm in my chest. But the bed shifted as Alex moved. I felt his eyes on me before he spoke. You're thinking too hard again. I tensed. I'm not. You are. His fingers brushed against my arm, soft, grounding. You're doing that thing, trying to convince yourself this isn't real. My breath caught. I wanted to deny it, to push him away, but I couldn't. Because he was right. I exhaled slowly and sat up. Look, Alex. I don't know what this was for you, but... He sat up too, cutting me off. Don't do that. I turned to face him, frustration bubbling up. Do what? Act like this didn't mean something. I swallowed hard. Did it? His jaw tightened. His eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. After a long pause, he ran a hand through his hair and sighed. Do you really think I keep coming back here because your house is falling apart? His voice was quieter now, rawer, stripped of that usual effortless confidence. I stared at him, heart pounding. He shook his head, an almost amused breath slipping out. Jesus, you really don't get it, do you? I didn't speak. I couldn't. He moved closer, reaching for my hand. His touch was hesitant but certain. I didn't have to take these jobs. I could have passed them off. Made excuses. Left you to figure it out. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, a slow warmth spreading through me. But I didn't. Because I wanted to be here. Something inside me cracked. I stared down at our hands, breath shaky. Why? Alex let out a soft laugh, shaking his head like the answer was obvious. Because you're different. He looked at me, voice low and steady. The first time I stepped into this house, you looked at me like I was the last person you wanted around. But the second I got close, the second I pushed, you didn't pull away. His grip tightened gently. You drive me insane. You act like you don't want me. Like this scares you. But every time, you let me in. He held my gaze, his voice softer now, more real. And I keep coming back because I want more. More of you. My chest ached, the weight of his words sinking in. I shook my head, still unsure, still afraid. Alex, You don't have to say anything, he said, interrupting again. His fingers threaded between mine. But you do have to make a choice. I swallowed. What choice? He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he leaned in, lips brushing my temple. You can keep running, he murmured. Keep pretending this is a mistake. That it doesn't mean anything. He pulled back just far enough to look at me, eyes steady, voice calm. Or, you can take a chance on something real. My throat tightened. Because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this wasn't fleeting. That it wouldn't burn out just as fast as it started. But fear was still there. And he saw it. He always did. Alex sighed, rubbing his jaw. You don't have to decide right now, he said gently. But don't lie to yourself. He shifted off the bed, reached for his shirt, and pulled it on in one swift motion. I watched him, heart hammering. My voice slipped out before I could stop it. You're leaving. He paused, fingers hovering over the waistband of his jeans, then looked. He paused, fingers hovering over the waistband of his jeans, then looked back at me. Do you want me to stay? The question lingered in the space between us, thick, heavy, real. I thought about the past few weeks. About the silence this house had held before him. About the way he'd slowly cracked me open, without ever asking me to. I didn't want to go back to that quiet. So I didn't answer. I reached for him instead. Alex barely had time to react before I was pulling him down, pressing my mouth to his in something soft, deep, certain. His body tensed, just for a second, then melted into mine. His hand slid back to my waist, his breath warm against my cheek. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, our breath mingling. "Stay," I whispered. He exhaled, arms wrapping around me completely. "Yeah," he murmured, pressing a slow kiss to my temple. "I can do that." And for the first time, I wasn't scared. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Would you take the risk, knowing the world might never understand, or would you walk away before it was too late? Because right now, I don't think I can.